are blessed with a home that has the perfect location, strong lines, and good bones, entrusting a team of creatives to do what they do best can reward you with a house that boasts a finest home status.
South African homes have truly come into their own over the last few decades. Generic imitations have made way for modern masterpieces and character-filled spaces. Finest Homes explores these creations, talking to the visionaries who are bringing them to life. Join us as we explore some of these spaces, showcasing the architecture, interior design, and the landscape design.
I'm your host, Balisa Dembe, and this is Finest Homes. For today's Finest Home, I'm visiting a house at the edge of Cape Town City Bowl. High above the hustle of the stunning city, you'll find the neighborhood of Higgovale, an area that enjoys tree-lined streets and spectacular views, a hidden gem that had good bones but was in serious need for an update. Architect Werner Lotz was called in to re-envision and adapt it to suit a family's needs. Werner, what was here when you did your first site inspection?
It's pretty rough looking. Hasn't seen renovation in maybe 20 years. Like green floors with the red chili imprints on the floor, 2 kitchens, and just generally run down. Actually not really, taking advantage of the beautiful views.
And that begs the question, did you initially first see the potential of this house upon visit?
Listen, I think my job kind of requires me to always dream. And I think you can salvage anything. So, I looked at the house and there was multiple levels, and I really do like that in properties. Also saw the potential of doing a single story, which I always prefer. I think it gives you a better proportion on elevation and for the facades. So yes, I definitely did see the potential. And there's already a bit of character there. So yeah, I fell in love with the earth and the views.
Absolutely. Now, when it does come to your client brief and what he envisioned for the house compared to what you did, how did the two match up?
That's a good question, and I'm going to enjoy answering this. The clients came to me and Janine and asked us to do something that we would love to occupy. So I really did design or approach the design from the client's perspective as if it's from my own perspective. We both have families, and I wanted to create a beautiful family home where I would love to live. So yeah, I think the clients had a very strong vision, aesthetically speaking, which is also great because it weren't that hard for them to make decisions. They're pretty good at decision making. That's a big thing in architecture. And so I think it was smooth sailing with really visions that resonated. I think all the designers and the client just really worked very well together.
And looking throughout the architecture of the space, there's such unique, interesting touch points.
Okay, so I think first of all it would be the split levels. So instead of having an insular home or just having an open plan home, because I think that's a little bit old-fashioned now, we really looked at just levels, giving us a distinction between different spaces. And then we did use a lot of natural light, so it's skylights, and especially with a house like this, where you don't have that much envelope, and it's quite a deep house and also quite wide. It's really important to get natural light deep into the building. So it's skylights, and then nature. Really try to blur the line between inside and out, really kind of confusing threshold. I think we try to really make a connection with the views and with nature, and keeping it low slung with lots of natural ventilation and natural light. Yeah, quite simple.
Can you just tell me a little bit more about the functionality of the home?
Pali, yes. All residential projects in Cape Town, you kind of have to consider the wind direction. So that's a very important component, especially for family living. And when you talk about family living in Cape Town, we also talk about the braai. So you need spots to make fire. And in the case of this house, we have two courtyards, one facing north and one facing south, and both being protected depending on which direction the wind comes from. So the project's basically configured around courtyards and living out onto those courtyards. Also, typical family vibes would be more of a formal sitting area, or maybe not that formal. It's more like a grown-up zone where you sit and drink wine and enjoy a fire, and the spot where you can watch TV for the kids. And then both of those spaces flow out onto outside areas or courtyards. Yeah, and I think an important thing for architecture in general would be to try and distance yourself from fashion or what's fashionable at the moment. And I think it's actually quite easy to do that as long as you stick with natural materials, natural building materials. And in the case of this house, we used walnut for the ceilings. We used a very common granite for the floors, and then bagwash for the walls. All of that's quite common materials. I mean, it's hardy, it's long lasting, and it's just maintenance free.
So, Werner, when I did walk into the home, I definitely noticed a quite strong visual line running through.
Yes, that was actually very much on purpose. As you enter into the house, you arrive into the social spaces with a casement window framing the signal hill, and then there's a very strong visual access connecting a water body, which is the pool, through all the social spaces into the back courtyard that's onto the street. And that was very much on purpose. Both social spaces open up completely, once again breaking down the threshold between inside and out. And if you open up both doors, you stand on one side of the house, you can see all the way through the reflection of Signal Hill in the pool.
I've truly enjoyed every aspect of this home and the space in general. But if you were to narrow it down to two iconic spaces within the home, what would those be?
Yeah, it's a good question. I really do enjoy almost all the spaces, but my favorite two would be the wine cellar, which is quite unique, I think, and very much kind of encapsulates that feeling of, standing around a bar, enjoying a very good glass of red wine, and then the guest bathroom, which is very interesting with Andrew Sutherland's painting made into a wallpaper. And I think it's just such an interesting space.
Stay with us as after the break, we meet up with Janine Bruce to find out how architect and interior designer work together to create this exquisite contemporary abode. In today's episode of Finest Homes, we're visiting a house at the foot of Table Mountain. A house that had good bones and the perfect location, but one that was in dire need of an update. It took the vision and skill of an insightful architect and talented interior designer to transform it into a calm haven for a young family. Before the break, we sat down with architect Werner Lotz to talk about the brief and how he was able to elevate an existing structure. Now we meet up with interior designer Janine Bruce to find out more about the creative process that saw this updated family home come to life. Janine, lovely to see you. Janine and Werner, you guys had the most incredible opportunity to work together on a project like this. But what does that open up in terms of possibilities for an architect and an interior designer?
I think, the collaboration between architect and interior designer is such a great one because you've got two, in the best of their trades, working together to bring a kind of symbiotic, piece all together. I think that it was a natural progression, and we started together pretty much right from the beginning, which is also really great because then all the details are kind of fine-tuned between the two of us. So it was a really cool experience.
Yeah, I think in the past, I actually haven't really had the opportunity to work with a lot of interior designers before. So I would just wing everything on my own. And I realized how much richness gets brought into a project when you get an interior designer on board. And I really enjoyed Janine's design aesthetic and her approach. So I think, when we started working together, we resonated well. And I just kind of created something really nice.
Well, it definitely shows the proof is in the pudding. But with a home like this, with such strong mid-century modern ties, does the architecture then dictate the interior design?
So mid-century modern is one of my favorite styles, but I think that this is very much a modern contemporary style, and it's taken those beautiful bones of mid-century modern and it's almost stripped them and taken it back to its raw quality and then brought in the more contemporary modern overall. So just like elements like in the space that we're standing in now, where fluted glass was an element that was used so often in mid-century design, but now it's brought very subtly into the kitchen. So yeah, the bones were there, and I mean the first kitchen that was here was like full mid-century modern, and so this is a much more contemporary style that's come through, but the beautiful minimal bones are what I think, brings that mid-century element.
I also think it comes down to materiality. You know, mid-century houses are known to use natural materials. And once again, we kind of reverted to that. So it's a reinterpretation of the same types of materials. Also, we're trying to bring back darker woods, a little bit over all the blonde woods that everyone loved, the Scandinavian look. So it was really kind of a nice exploration, you know, maybe a bit more of a serious space, which I think is really a good quality. Something that's really nice about this type of scale house, I do find like a modern, unconsidered approach usually just creates these double volumes, but it doesn't really add any value to a space. And I really love the idea where if you want to reveal something or open up a space, you need to pinch it first. So it's really a human scale architecture, where a double volume, I don't find that as a human scale architecture as well. It's more like an office building typology that was brought into residential architecture.
Now, with having such a young and active family, how are you both able to optimize on the optimal living spaces?
I think it's a generational thing. So I think my generation of families, the way we entertain is kind of the way we design as well. So the kitchen, dining area is the hub of the house. That's where you entertain, where you hang out, where you drink wine, where you see your friends. It's rare that you sit on the couch and watch TV with your friends, right? So it's really a space that lends itself to lounging, but also sitting by the table, having your friends chop, you know, the goodies, the vegetables or whatever. While you entertain, you're also cooking. I think it's just kind of
it's a social home.
It's a social kind of approach. And I think that's the way we designed it.
Yeah, and I think that there are layers to the home, yet there's an effortless flow between the spaces. And for example, the snug lounge, which is on the high level, the whole family chills out on that sofa. And then they have the flow between all spaces in the home. And definitely this hub with dining space, kitchen space leading into the more formal lounge and then flowing out into pool and outdoor area. There's such an epic flow. So you imagine if there are a whole bunch of people here, like this, this is the hangout. And this will grow with their kids. And they've got a young family at the moment. And I think, it will just lend itself to that, or it will adapt with them easily.
Yeah, I also think, I really do think this house will age gracefully.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't made for the fashion of today. I think actually once it gets a bit of a patina and the leather gets soft, and you know the floors get a little bit of dirt in it, it's really gonna, you know, you're gonna grow into it.
It's like a humble being. They're really cool family, and I think that it suits them down to round. If they had to be here and you had to see them hanging out here, I think it really it works for them.
This home truly seems like a real celebration of the old world that meets the new.
Yeah, I think as a society, we at the moment prefer the artisanal above the, you know, mass-produced, and I think that's the beauty of this house, that everything was considered and really made by a craftsperson. So nothing kind of bought off the shelf and just kind of haphazardly ended up here. And I think that's kind of what we try and achieve. You know, we really custom make a space for a very specific person in a very specific time period.
Yeah, I think everything is custom in this home, and the furniture. So we're so lucky with so many epic designers in South Africa, and I think that this home is a great celebration of local designers. And it's just taking example something as a Rimpy chair, and yes, it's not the old school Rimpy, but it's a more classic take on the Rimpy chair, which I think is a timeless piece. And so that language is carried throughout the home, and I think celebrated in that the beautiful mid-century modern way, but yeah, a more classy, classic, timeless approach that suits the family.
Yeah, especially, I mean, if we look at the choice of timber, that actually ended up being very much a collaboration between Janine, myself, the clients, and you know, we went back and forth what kind of material to go for. I mean, at one stage we had a white ceiling. So, and then, you know, after going through so many versions of the design, the client agreed that, you know, a darker wood actually really suits them and this house.
And we were so stoked, obviously, because the trend is the the light woods, the more Scandi look. And when Werner and I almost pitched that darker wood, we were kind of like, is it gonna take? Is it not?
Yeah.
And a few days later, they came back and said, let's go for it. So we were so stoked, and then really pushed it. And
yeah, I think also the dark wood really opened up a whole new palette of materials, the tan leather and, you know, the richer carpets.
Yeah, I mean, the darker stones.
Yeah.
Well, it does look like you haven't allowed the mid-century modern style to completely limit you in terms of your creativity. I love it.
Awesome,
Thank you.
After the break, I sit down with Janine to talk about decor and design decisions that led to a truly family-orientated home. In today's episode of Finest Homes, we're visiting a home in the leafy neighborhood of Higgovale. Perched above the bustling city of Cape Town with its forest setting and elevated views, it's a house that the owners could see their kids grow up in. Thanks to the creative input and meticulous execution of architect Werner Lotz and interior designer Janine Bruce, the house can now truly boast with Finest Home status. Before the break, we touched on key points that made for a successful collaboration of these two visionaries. Now I sit down with Janine to discuss the finer details when it comes to decor and design of this contemporary home. Janine, as the interior designer, how did the client's brief match up to your vision for the renovation?
So the client really put a lot of trust in myself and Werner, which is really great. Those are the best type of clients, and they let you roll with it, which is great. They did give, obviously they're a family of 5, so it needed to suit their young family and kids and be timeless. So the materials chosen, this home won't date.
Walnut is definitely a strong theme carried throughout the home.
Yes, so walnut is a beautiful warm timber, and I think works well alongside a neutral palette, but yet with splashes of color, textural elements. There's tobacco, tan leather, this beautiful blue, which is a very strong mid-century color. I think it works so well in this space, and yeah, we were very lucky to be able to use so much of it.
Now, what was your approach when it came to the main bedroom and the ensuite?
The main bedroom views of Lion's Head, Signal Hill, the city and the harbour really steal the show, so we decided to really pare down the interior. It's quite a masculine dark palette with a sheer pepper linen curtain, which really softens the space, and then a luxurious silky rug in a carbon colour, which adds a softness to the foot as you step off the bed. A custom box-out headboard is upholstered in a textured boucle fabric, which is a subtle mid-century touch. And then walnut bedside pedestals are wedged in between the 2 recesses in the headboard, which function well with a limited space on either side of the bed. And then the bedside lights are fitted to the wall to then maximize the space on the bedside pedestals. This walnut is then carried through into the dressing room, where we have sneaked in a small little dressing table nook, which is under a gorgeous porthole skylight, which was part of Werner's design. The main ensuite, which is one of my favorite spaces in this home, is wrapped with a neutral handmade look towel and is installed in a stacker-bond pattern. So this is when the tiles are laid directly on top of each other and they're not set off, so the lines are much cleaner, which is another subtle mid-century aesthetic value. And then a charming walnut Rempe bench sits alongside the bath, and the shower sliding door opens up fully, so you have an indoor-outdoor shower, which is so dreamy.
Let's get into some fun. The kids' bedrooms and bathrooms are exceptional.
Yes, the little girl's bedroom was actually one of my favorite spaces to design. It was a mature approach to a space which will grow with her and is able to morph through the years. She is a girly girl, and so we introduced brass hardware, a brass mirror and lighting, and alongside a subtle white marble, which is used on the vanity, and a plinth above the headboard. The headboard is in a dusty pink velvet and neatly tucked underneath the stone plinth and tufted from left to right. A subtle feminine arch is carried through the various elements in this space, including the vanity mirror, the joinery handles, and the headboard. And the joinery allows for a dressing table desk area with open and closed storage, so for her to display her pretties, but also hide away the general kids' room clutter. Then onto the boys' bathroom, and we introduce a pop of fun with an emerald green handmade look towel, again laid in a stack-bond pattern. And then a strong contrast of black sanitary ware and steel accessories, and the walnut joinery, again, take a more mature approach to the kids' bathroom. One of my favorite places to design is actually a guest WC. It's always a fun space to design because the clients don't often go in there, and it's a space for the guests. So often at a dinner party when guests come out, it's almost a talking point. And the client has a beautiful collection of artwork, and one of their favorite artists is Andrew Sutherland. I got in touch with Andrew while we were busy with the design, and it was perfectly timed as he was doing a collaboration with Cara Savin wallpaper designer. So it was then, one of his works was then translated into a wallpaper, and this is what drapes the walls in the guest loo, and together with the black sanitary ware, a smoky mirror, and a beautiful dark marble vanity with seamless basin, it becomes a really moody statement piece and a conversation starter.
I love what you've done with the furniture, especially these built-in pieces.
So built-in furniture is actually one of the main aspects of a mid-century modern home. And it's an element that we wanted to include right from the beginning. And I think Van and I would both vouch for it's one of our favorite spots. Built-in furniture has to be thought through because obviously once it's built in, it's not coming out. So this space really called for this element, and I think that it's worked really well. And it works with the flow of the space. You'll also see that we have brought in a ledge to the dining room space, which forms the seating on one half of the dining area, but it's loved by the kids and it's a great feature to the space.
Lighting is usually very functional, but I love the fact that you've incorporated rather unique light features.
Yeah, so we kept our general task lighting very simple, and then we've thrown in some really beautiful feature lights. Feature lighting can form such a major role in a project, and I think in this it's a really special feature. Just a simple track light over the kitchen dining table. The kitchen's quite a busy design, and yet I think that then the simple track light over the dining table is such a great feature. The wall lights, I think that the lighting in here it's exemplified, if that's the right word, and we've really made it shine in areas. Majority of it is black. Actually, all the pendant lights are black steel, and they stand out beautifully against the walnut, and they're a feature. They're not hidden. They are proud in the space, whether it be wall lights or feature lights.
And what is your top tip for someone who wants to accomplish a contemporary mid-century modern look?
So I think when you go a mid-century modern route is to stick to its beautiful design principles, but to not get stuck. So you can strip it back and have the same language that follows through, and use strong features.
That's it for this week's episode of Finest Homes. Do join us again next week as we bring you more inspirational design.